2 Saturdays ago, I was watching a terrifying ghost photo video that had also been featured on Nick and Nico Duga, Yomi. Before I talk about what happened at that time, let me provide some background on my older brother's connection to spiritual matters. Inside my brother, there's something similar to what's inside Ms. B, who appears in the thread about the being that dwells, Tsukumo no, which some people here might already know. The differences from the being that dwells are: 1. The being that dwells is passive, but the thing inside my brother is active. 2. It's like a self-activating absorber and predator. In other words, it calls and lures evil spirits, curses, demons, and yokai itself and devours them, an annoying glutton of all things evil. The only saving grace is that it doesn't seem to be picky about what it eats. 3. Sometimes it comes out and fights my brother. Even if it's outside, none of us in the family can see it, unlike Ms. B, who is asleep when the being that dwells emerges. My brother stays fully awake even when the thing inside him appears. My brother can see things and will often fight evil spirits physically, literally hitting them with his fists. Though he's not some professional exorcist, he does it privately. Sometimes my brother is controlled by the entity and ends up devouring spirits. From an outsider's point of view, it just looks like my brother is moving in bizarre ways. When asked what the thing inside him looks like, my brother says it's impossible to explain. I supposedly have some spiritual sensitivity as well, so I occasionally feel things, but I'm apparently protected, so I almost never see them. My mother sometimes sees things. That's the background. From now on, I'll talk about what happened that day, along with the conversations I had with my brother at the time. It seems that video was filled with genuinely dangerous ghost photos, so my brother got possessed by his inner entity more than usual, grabbing at the screen with one hand as though he were eating whatever was there. Usually, if he watches about 50 such videos, he'll only devour something in 2 or 3 of them, but in that particular video, he was eating from most of the photos shown. And around 4 minutes and 15 seconds into the video, a problematic photo appeared. At the time, I personally didn't sense anything from the video. There was talk that if you see this ghost's blue face and eyes, you're in serious trouble, and apparently, my brother did see its eyes. The blue face in question wasn't that usual pale, corpse-like color. It was a bright, vivid blue, like a blue LED. The moment that face appeared, my brother behaved differently than usual. While he did still try to devour it in the normal sense, as soon as that photo appeared, he started scooping up the space in front of the screen with his entire body and clutched it as if hugging it, eating it desperately. Even I was taken aback. That's not how he usually reacts. Was it some exceptionally delicious prey? I thought, and I continued watching until the video ended. Normally, that would be the end of it. Even if some evil spirit came into the house, my brother would easily beat it by either devouring it or punching it and forcefully sending it on or outright obliterating it. But the real problem started the next day. That morning, I went upstairs to feed the cats on the balcony. The moment I entered my own room, which opens onto the balcony, the cats started running wild with a huge ruckus, thud thump crash bang smash. Their behavior was so extreme, I was wide-eyed. But I opened the door to feed them anyway, and as I poured food into their bowls, I noticed that they all seemed terrified. Worried I might have scared them somehow, I moved closer, but they didn't even twitch in response to me. Every cat was staring fixedly at a single point. Since it was the first time I'd seen them act like this, I carefully observed the spot they were staring at. There were no bugs or anything visible, definitely no flies they could have been reacting to. What struck me most was that even though the cat's eyes were facing the morning sun, so bright it should have made them squint, their pupils were fully dilated, as though they were trying to see something in a dimly lit area. Although I visit occult sites and watch such videos, the cats are always aloof and unbothered, which reassured me. So their reaction that day felt all the more unsettling. That night, after returning from work, I was next to my brother, telling my mother about the cat's odd behavior that morning. This is how the conversation went. Me: hey, about this morning, the cats were acting strange. They were terrified, and even when I got close, they didn't react to me at all. They just stared at one spot. Their pupils were dilated even though there was nothing there. Brother, it's there. Me: huh, brother, it's here. It came. Me: what do you mean, it came? Brother: that video you showed me yesterday. Me: you mean that ghost photo video? Brother: yeah, that main spirit showed up. Me: which one are you talking about? Brother: I don't remember it well, but that photo with the blue-faced ghost, right? Me: oh, the one that's supposed to be dangerous if you see its eyes. I never saw it. Brother: I saw it. My memory of the video itself is fuzzy, but that face is burned into my head. It had truly red eyes, like they were on fire, and the pupils were pure darkness, the epitome of the abyss. Me. So that main spirit is here, brother, yeah. From this presence and its strength, that's what I think. And if this is only part of it, then the real main body must be monstrous. Me. But you said it yourself, right? With these self-responsibility type stories, whatever shows up is usually just residual stuff. Sometimes local spirits disguise themselves, but it's rare for the real main one to come all the way out here, brother, yeah, it's supposed to be rare. But here we are. Me. You can beat it, right? I mean, you can eat it, can't you, brother? No way. It's inedible. It's already set up some negative barrier around the entire house. This is on a completely different level from all the things I've eaten before. I've devoured all kinds of monsters and evil spirits, even ones at the Hasaku-sama level, but this one is impossible. Me. So it's like that real ghoul from hell we saw once before, brother, yeah. Me. That was a low-level creature called a gaki, hungry ghost, but you really struggled with it, huh, brother, yeah. You can practically hear him thinking, this little brat is pushing my buttons. Me. So. What now, brother? We have no choice but to wait and see for a while. The idea of us attacking it first is out of the question. Me. Got it. So we chatted for a bit, made some cotton candy with our cotton candy maker, when suddenly, my brother stood up. I wondered if he was going to the bathroom, but the look on his face was obviously not normal. It was that look he gets when he's possessed. It felt like the thing inside him was desperate not to miss out on this ultimate feast and was forcing him to go feed. I watched him head upstairs while eating my cotton candy. A little while later, I heard some noise from upstairs, then my brother came back down and, sure enough, he'd been under the thing's control. According to him, when I came to, I was standing right in front of it. He said that maybe the entity haunting us called out to him, making him appear there. We started talking about how to deal with it, but then that face blue ghost apparently came downstairs. My brother, unusually panicked, said, crap. It came into the room. Hey! Give me something I can use as a weapon. So I threw him a crystal bracelet, which had a 9 dragon engraving on it, that I'd been purifying with chips of crystal, lapis lazuli, and amethyst by letting them sit in the sunlight every day. Hell yeah! Apparently, he landed a solid punch on the face blue ghost, but then my brother clutched his right arm and curled up, trembling. I asked him how it went, and he said, I did manage to hit it, and I guess it didn't expect me to counterattack. It ran upstairs, but damn it, it took something from me. When I asked, where did it get you? He said, my left eye and my right arm. Immediately after that, my brother's phone rang. It was his friend, the same one who always calls, his buddy T, who's a temple-born monk with crazy spiritual and physical strength, calling at just the right moment. I wondered if maybe T had sensed our situation through his spiritual powers, but from my brother's side of the conversation, it seemed he hadn't noticed anything unusual. Naturally, my brother explained what was going on, but since T was far away, we already knew he couldn't come help. Meanwhile, I went upstairs to feed the cats again. Usually, if I'm going to sense anything, I sense it, but that time I felt absolutely nothing. I had no clue where the ghost was hiding. So I just played with the cats for a bit. They were back to normal by then, and went back downstairs. When I got down, my brother was still on the phone. Apparently, T had recently been in a motorcycle accident, and the energy leaking out from him over the phone line was somehow strong enough to break the barrier the face blue ghost had created, weakening it. My brother thanked him over the phone, and while he was finishing up the call, I packed away the cotton candy maker and then went straight to bed. The next day, with his friend's guardian spirit, a celestial fox, often called an otenko or kitsune, and my brother teaming up, they beat that thing to the point it no longer even had a recognizable form, and finally devoured it. But the story didn't end there. Apparently, it wasn't fully digested yet, so last Thursday, it bit my brother around his intestines, and he was writhing in pain. Coincidentally, that day was my birthday, though that's irrelevant. I got off work, went out to eat, and as I was driving home, I was almost at the house when I found him lying down. Thinking maybe he had appendicitis, I started checking him over. Then I remembered and said, could it be the leftovers of that ghost that didn't fully digest, so it gave you a final parting shot? He was surprised. That was last Saturday. But apparently, he realized that was indeed the cause. He immediately repaired his spiritual body, and that was that. Just as a side note, besides its spiritual rank, the most unsettling thing about that entity was that it displayed no emotion. Whether it's a monster or an evil spirit, When it realizes there's someone who can actually perceive it, it usually cracks an eerie grin, much like the being that dwells. But this one had none of that. This was my brother's first time encountering something like it, and it really hit him hard. He told me, no more occult sites or videos for a while. But even as he said that, he sat with me today watching Bonton San's videos. I kinda love that about him. Sorry this was all over the place, but that's all for my story. 911, Honton Yataka Y Nanashi Sage 2011/08/28 21 hours 54 minutes 57.18 seconds ID, 6IMX3T2R0. 881. That was interesting. If you have any other stories, please share. By the way, what did your ancestors do? Tell us more about your family line, if possible. 942, Honton Yataka Y Nanashi Sage 2011/08/2900:48:02.20 ID, VJNL plus 6C30. 911 I'm not really sure what our ancestors did, but there is an intriguing story. First, my father is a son-in-law who married into my mother's family, so we don't actually carry my father's surname in our lineage. The reason is that in my maternal grandmother's generation, all her children died, so she took in an abandoned child and raised her, and that child, who survived, is my grandmother. My grandmother then had 2 daughters, no sons. So even though we inherited the grandmother's family name, we didn't inherit their bloodline. Yet inheriting the name apparently still creates some sort of spiritual karma. My mother, back in the day, had frequent paranormal experiences, though not as intensely as my brother, from what I've heard. I don't know the details, so I can't really share them here, lol. Anyway, my brother was curious as to why all of Grandma's other children died. He wondered if it was some sort of curse, so he searched high and low, and eventually found a local oral tradition, likely related to our very ancestor. According to that tradition, it goes like this. 943, Honton Yataka Y Nanashi Sage 2011/08/2900:48:23.59 ID, VJNL plus 6C30. A long time ago, there was a man who was highly skilled with a sword. At age 12, he could slice a large tree trunk in two, and he was somewhat well known in the area. One day, when this man had grown up, people living around his estate witnessed black shadows surrounding his home. That night, the moon was shining with an unusually eerie radiance, illuminating the darkness far and wide, so people could clearly see these black shadows. They saw the swordsman and the shadows engaged in battle from afar, and watched anxiously, hoping he'd be safe. After a while, the noise stopped, and the sounds of fighting ceased, but the air was still so tense and frightening that the onlookers decided to check on him the next day instead and went to bed. The next day, the man seemed changed. However, he could still speak and understand people. He wasn't completely different. He had become somewhat more violent, but because people knew his personality, the villagers tried not to worry about it too much. Even after that, he had many troubles, but he somehow remained human, until one day he took the life of someone dear to him. That incident transformed him into a demon. With a gigantic sword in hand, he cleaved through horses, armor, and people alike in a single slash, using monstrous strength and superhuman reflexes, massacring everyone. Even samurai and onmyoji, yin-yang sorcerers, were powerless, leaving countless corpses in his wake. One day, an onmyoji stood against him. That onmyoji's name was Abe no Seimei. The demon was ultimately defeated by Abe no Seimei and was laid to rest. And that's the story. Since it's purely oral tradition, we don't know how true any of it is. That's all.